Good morning, Automator Series. I am back for another episode with the lovely Courtney Eileen. So firstly, well, thanks so much for joining me all the way from your side.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to crack into things. So for the people who don't know you and your awesome story and the awesome things you're doing, I'd love for you just to say hi to everyone, introduce yourself a little bit, and just tell people a bit about what you're doing, what you're involved with, and who you are and your passions.
Okay, great. So, yes, I am Courtney Eileen, and I became a spiritual teacher from learning Reiki and just working with clients with just Reiki, and then having that grow over the years and just feeling and different messages, from people that I came across going to different courses, going to different retreats, and just felt this inner calling that I needed to take it bigger.
Mm.
I'm quite the introvert, so social media and such is really not my not my forte, but I just pushed past that comfort zone to really just open up and be of service to people. And I help people who are going through all kinds of different life transitions. My story began with a loss of my husband, my first husband at 22.
Mm.
And then learning how to deal with the pain and to live again. I got married again and had children, and learning how to handle that and balance that, and then went through an interesting divorce. And so I've been a single mom now for quite a long time. And
Mm.
so I kind of touch on all the different life transitions. I check all the boxes, but it's been a really, interesting path, and just one that led me back to hope and finding happiness no matter what we go through. So
Yeah.
and my
No, but I
story.
mean that's very, I don't want to say extreme, but that's intense because I mean having those experiences at such a young age. Like when I think about myself as being 22, I was an idiot. Like I knew nothing. I had no life experiences, and having
Yeah.
to go through almost like a trial by fire so quickly, it's like it must have been a very, very fast and hard journey of self-development.
Definitely. Absolutely. Not a better way to put that.
Yeah. And so that you say that's what sent you on the path of discovering Reiki and other kind of forms of, I guess, meditation and holistic type things. Is that literally what started the whole
Yeah.
journey?
Yeah, and it's funny, it's kind of that spirit just put it into my life. I was going to school to become an esthetician at the time,
Mm.
and I had asked a teacher about essential oils. And so she said, "Oh, I have a friend, she teaches essential oils and she also teaches a Reiki class."
Mm.
And I'd only heard Reiki mentioned one time. I had no idea what it was, and it was this pull. It was like somehow I went to this woman's house on a Saturday for this class, which is not my personality either. I
Just
just
rock up
was
to someone's house.
nothing. Yeah, just had no idea what I was going for really. And
Yeah.
so it just opened up this whole world for me. But it did really help me to learn about what I had inside and how I was holding the pain, and then how to let go, and especially how to let go of control. That was a big life challenge for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kind of came to me, and it just took on its own little story.
No, crazy. I mean, and that first experience, did you feel such kind of big shifts already? Like, wow, this is powerful. Or did it take a little bit to get into it?
No, it was immediate. It was in that class that she did the Reiki attunement.
Mm.
And I just had this amazing feeling. But I really did make the choice when I went into it of, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to be very open,
Yeah.
and I'm just going to go with it, and I'm going to let it be whatever it's supposed to be. So I didn't really have any walls up. And then that attunement process, I didn't know what she was doing, but because your eyes are closed too, but I just felt just this movement, and I just was connected so much with nature and just all the different signs that came through to me. So it was pretty instant.
Mm.
And really closely thereafter, I joined a couple different groups. And so I started going to different courses and meditations and retreats. And I was just the sponge, like whatever
Yeah.
it is that comes into my path. And I felt a yes, I just did it. So
Yeah. So you fell for it hard and fast, pretty much.
yeah, big time.
Yeah. It's like when you discover those new passions, you go from zero to like 100. Like you start doing it every day and joining all the groups and meeting all
Yeah.
the people in the community type of thing.
I feel like I should mention too, I did go to traditional therapy and it just wasn't really for me. So I did try that a couple different therapists and it didn't have that kind of connection. And
Mm.
so it was interesting when this came in, like you said, it just was just such an immediate, and I was just open and it just went.
Yeah. No, it's interesting you bring up the therapy part because I was speaking with someone yesterday, and she was the very first thing she brought up was how she sees counseling and coaching as very different from each other. And I was like, oh, I mean, how come? Like, how do you see them different? And she was saying she found counseling, I guess she meant therapy by that. It's like it didn't really, she feels it didn't really move her forward. It just kind of like, it's like kind of like kept you in a circle. It's just like someone to talk to, but you weren't kind of actually getting the tools or toolkit to improve yourself and kind of really push yourself. But maybe that's just the person she was working with and her experience. But interesting that you brought up that wasn't for you either.
It was very much like that. It just felt like um we didn't really go deep and we didn't really kind of have that transformation. And I definitely love talking to people. So I enjoyed my time with the people. It wasn't feeling like I was getting anywhere really with
Yeah.
it. And I still was having, like I said, I have to hold the physical pain because to me, that was holding on to him and
Mm.
keeping him, relative in my life and like honoring that love.
Yeah.
And so for some reason, Reiki and spirituality and everything just opened this opportunity for me to learn how to have a connection with him in a spiritual way instead of holding on to this and trying to hold it in a physical way.
Yeah, and in a way that sounds like it's gonna almost not keep you down, but like be very heavy on you and like kind of stop you from potentially experiencing other things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So the type of work you're doing with Reiki, are you working with specific people from specific backgrounds, or can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So when I first started with Reiki, I was working inside of a medical office and I just had, because again, I was an esthetician. So I was doing esthetician work. And then as I started working with people who came in for that, and just a lot of people don't know this is 10 years ago. So they really didn't know
Mm.
what it really was.
Yeah.
But they were open to me, showing them and doing little Reiki treatments, sessions with them during their other esthetician treatment. And then from there, I just started to have people refer me out to other people. And so there was a wide variety. I found people were coming to me for medical issues. Some people would say, oh, my doctor referred me to Reiki for my knee because I'm supposed to have a knee surgery. And that was shocking to me too. So, because I worked for a Western medicine doctor and they really don't have an open community of like information coming through them for like what's out there holistically. So
Mm.
I was really fascinated, but I did find that a couple times that doctors who are more in the orthopedic or the surgery that they are referring for Reiki. And then interestingly, I also had women coming to me for they were having issues getting pregnant. And I
Mm.
never, ever, ever thought that that would be something that I would help people with. So it was just mind blowing that it's all different people, all different reasons, and that it just opens for them and what needs to happen for their life, whether it's physically that they have something coming up physically, as I always say. Our body will show us something physically because we're keeping something suppressed or hidden or blocked. And
Mm.
so it's over time, it's like, I can't get your attention any other way. So I'm going to have you have this physical thing that really makes you stop and say, okay, wait, I need to address this.
Yeah.
And then you have the people who are just ready for a spiritual awakening and they don't really know what that looks like, but they're just led to it. So
No.
it's very variety.
Yeah, no, it's also really interesting that it sounds like kind of right off the bat, people were just referring and kind of word of mouth and like speaking highly of the service. Because I mean, it sounds like they had it kind of had as big of a first experience for them as it did for you as well. That they're like, wow, this is something different. Like I need to tell other people about it.
Yeah, I think I feel like being called to tell you too that I think a difference when I started with Reiki, I am that A personality control freak. So that's why I mentioned that. So I did go to many different teachers after my first one just to be like, well, maybe there's something else I need to know, or did I do that right?
Yeah.
So, and seeing different teachers' approaches, I learned that the ego has a big factor in this. And so, as I first started working with Reiki and working with these clients, I thought, oh my gosh, who are you to do this? And it was stopping, obviously, the energy flow. So, I had to learn how to leave myself outside of the door and just say to myself, this isn't about you. This is about the service. This is about this person. And just allow for this to be whatever they need and get out of your own head. And that really made a difference. And I think my clients and the people coming to me were in the same kind of, like I said, you're just at that point where you're like, I'm willing to try anything. I just need this in my life. And so I'm going to go with it. And I think that has a huge factor of the quickness that happened in people's lives, the difference that they saw and how they felt called to share it with other people. So
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you bring that up. That, I mean, you mentioned you went into such an open mind and you were kind of just ready for whatever. I was speaking with a friend yesterday, and she does, no, it was 2 days ago, and she does breath work. And I'd gone to a few of her sessions, and she was like, "Well, how was it actually for you?" And I was like, "It kind of just felt like a very, like an interesting version of meditation for me." So this was breath work, and she says, "Yeah, for a lot of people, it sometimes takes 6, 7 sessions to fully let go, and then you kind of have those kind of slightly different experiences." But it sounds like in many of these cases you kind of already at that point of, you're like, I'm fully ready to let go, just see what happens.
absolutely. And I think that what energy we're holding allows for the other person to meet us there and to be like, oh, okay, if they feel really comfortable and good with this, then I kind of can allow my walls to come down and be in that same space with them.
Yeah, that's a big thing I've learned recently over the last few weeks. It's just come up in conversations, like openness to receiving and giving, but across many facets, not just um, money or relationships, but also, like you said, kind of energy almost. It's like someone can be giving out everything into the world, but if the person they're trying to give it to isn't open to receiving, then also that person might dial back their energy a little bit because they're like, well, what's the point, type of thing. So it's like being open also lets more kind of come to you, like allows more of it to happen.
Yeah. And the other thing I had to learn too, which was really hard for me, is I think as a healer, it's a natural thing that we want to help everybody and we want to heal the whole planet. And
Yeah.
we're really not meant for everybody. I have had to learn that, I just am not everybody's cup of tea kind of thing. And it's not anything about my personality or anything. It's just the energy, so we're going to probably be led to the people that we're supposed to connect with, but those that you're like, I don't know, I didn't feel that one so much. It's okay, because there'll be somebody else that's really that magnet for you of that energy match. And then you can really experience that open heart, open energy, and feel like, ooh, this was really magical.
Mm. Yeah, but also on that note, it's they might be the person that you work with and you don't really feel it. They might be kind of the same as how you were. You were just trying to find what works for you. You're trying to find what's going to resonate. And maybe in that situation just wasn't what the type of work that you're doing, but then they go to try meditation or breath work and they're like, oh, this is it for me. But it doesn't say anything about you. It's just them as well, where their energy and mindsets and experiences are at.
Yeah. And it's also, just where we are in that time frame. I years and years ago tried to read Eckhart Tolle.
Mm.
And the first time I picked up the book, I was like, is this in a different language? What's wrong with me?
It's like like forced reading almost.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, something's not right. And then years after, when I picked it up, it flowed and it was everything. And so, I just wasn't in that right kind of vibration to receive the information or to receive and connect in that way with that messaging. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of where we are and how we're feeling and how that connection is.
Yeah. Well, so that's like the benefit of going revisiting things you tried when you were younger or in the past, and maybe they didn't resonate or they did, just trying them again now, because it could be a complete different experience. Reading that book again or watching that movie again for the 50th time, or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And you'll get that one little piece out of it that you didn't get before, So I love that.
I mean, so how in total, how long have you been involved with all this type of work now?
So let's see. I took the first Reiki class in 2009, started my esthetician business in 2010. And then in 2015 is when I solely went just to doing healing and Reiki work. And so I've been doing that ever since. And I do it online. And then for people who are local, I see them locally too. But I pretty much do online and distance work.
Okay. I mean, how have you found that kind of difference between local and online? Like, do you have a preference? Well, what's the pros and cons for each one you found?
Yeah, when I was working with a teacher who was in France, and we had to kind of read for the people on the phone call, because this is again in like 2012. And so it wasn't Zoom. So
Yeah.
we were on the phone, and I thought, oh my gosh, how is this going to work? And I was so nervous. And it just was exactly the same as if the people were in the room. So I love the in person to person. I love that kind of connection. But I found that it's really no different. It's exactly, being on Zoom is great. Thank God Zoom came along,
Yeah.
because it really does feel like we're in the same room, even though you're in a completely different country. And you can really feel people's energy in that way. Sometimes over the phone, it's a little bit, I think, for the other person. For me, it feels, again, the same. But I think for people coming, they probably, especially when they're brand new to this, they kind of prefer that, like, I don't really know what this is. So they like the person to person together. But then once they get used to it, then, we do a lot over like recordings, and I send meditations and everything. So it feels to them, so far that I've heard back, that it's exactly the same. So
Yeah.
I kind of like everything, but I definitely love to connect with people and hug. So
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like physical touch as well is just such a massive part of things. And from what I've seen with Reiki as well, it's also a big component.
yeah, definitely. I think that it's, you can still move energy, you can still, do all of that, but it is nice. It is like a nice little perk when you have that physical body to touch too.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it comes down to, like, if you've done only in person before, try it online. If you've only done online, maybe try in person. It's kind of just seeing what works and what resonates for you, what feels best, and gets the best results as well.
Yeah, I think as a healer too, you should kind of push yourself into that realm, because it is a little apprehensive and scary at first. And you kind of think like, oh, will I be able to do what I do? But, you absolutely will. I think that it's good to keep pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have you had a few um, recent online sessions where it was like you were like blown away by the results type of thing? Like they were blown away, you were like, whoa, I didn't even know that was possible type of thing.
Yeah, kind of. I always feel like I'm blown away, and just, spirit always working through and all of the messages coming in. But yeah, I think that it's fascinating too, because I just had a phone call instead of a Zoom. Zoom wasn't working that day.
Yeah.
And so that one really, kind of blew my mind too, because just the depth that we could go into so quickly in just an hour phone call, I was really, amazed.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned like in video. I've found often when I have just audio, I actually focus more because there's like less sensory kind of things going on. It's like I've just got my hair in, I just focus on the voice type of thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I mean, so since you're focused on online, like mostly, almost specifically, I mean, how are you kind of going about finding people? Is it still lots of referral based stuff, or kind of how are you putting your message out there, and what you found works for you quite nicely?
So I do find my number one is to still have referrals coming through. And then I have been braving the social media world a little bit
Mhm.
more in Instagram. And it feels for me, Instagram energetically, I prefer that over the Facebook. I definitely have a Facebook page, but I love the interpersonal type of connection and I feel that more there. So
Mm.
I do find people from there, but it's still number one predominantly is always people saying, oh, you have to, try this. And so usually comes through that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Facebook can be very powerful, especially if you focused on on writing. If you like writing and that's what the people you work with like to read, I mean, or
Mhm.
that's how they like to communicate. It's great, but yeah, it can be definitely tricky. Like I've seen a lot of people busy on like TikTok as well and using the Instagram Reels quite a lot in regards to videos and funny little short memes as well, but still spiritual related. It's been quite interesting.
Yes, my children, of course, show me quite a bit. So my daughter is 15, and so she's on TikTok all the time and showing me all of the different things. So I feel like I'm little baby steps. I'm getting there. I'm learning the social media world.
You're going to be breaking out those dances and everything in just a couple of weeks.
Oh
She's
my
going to
God.
pull you in. She's going to get you there.
Yeah, she's quite shy, so she's not kind of the one doing the TikTok. She's just watching the TikToks and showing me all of them.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's awesome though. So obviously for you, images, pictures, things like that, maybe shorter kind of tidbits is you feel kind of resonates with you better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I think since, being in America and last year, Facebook was just kind of an energy place for a lot of ranting. And so
Yeah.
I preferred to go into my little safe cave and not deal with as much of that.
Yeah, it's just social media in general can be a very heavy place if you let it. Kind of if you get like swallowed into the echo chambers and stuff like that of people just going off at each other and things like that.
Yes.
But then again, it can also be extremely powerful, like you're saying, if you're following just people putting out positive messages like yourself, and whether that's on Instagram or TikTok, or you do find groups on Facebook who are like very supportive and very focused on helping and build each other up. Like, yeah, you just got to be tread very lightly, I guess.
Yeah, and I did actually spend a lot of time in Facebook groups since 2015.
Mm,
I did Gabby Bernstein's Spirit Junkie Masterclass in New York City. And
mm,
so before we went, she, had the Facebook group, and that was kind of my first experience. And so it was phenomenal because I met 250 people like myself, and
mm.
it was a really good space, and we really connected. And just to be able to follow people even after the master class and to have that connection, so I do like the Facebook groups. I think that they can be a really good space. It's, sometimes I see how you kind of still have to monitor and you still have to, be on top of that. But it definitely, for me as the person being a part of the group, it felt really good.
Actually, I was having a conversation yesterday with someone, and you speaking about being in the group with like 200 plus other coaches themselves or Reiki practitioners. Um, she mentioned something quite interesting in that she did a coaching program in Australia and then she was in her group, but how she actually found kind of her first clients and also honed her craft a little bit was working with the other coaches themselves who she trained with by saying like, hey, I'm thinking of, in your case, it's like, hey, I'm doing this new approach or concept to Reiki. Do you want to try it with me? Because I know you're obviously already open to these things. Like, I don't know, did you kind of pick up different
Yeah.
ideas and techniques from each of them that you went to implement after?
Absolutely. And then even in some mastermind groups that I was a part of over the years too, I have collaborated with those individuals different. And, in the 250, there weren't just Reiki and coaches, which was so awesome. There was everything that
Mm,
related to business, mostly holistic, but really there was lawyers in there and accountants in there. And it was so helpful that you
mm,
really could find everything you really needed for your business. And then same with the masterminds, that was more focused. So sometimes I found more types of Reiki healers, but there were still others. And to be able to cross collaborate, with people who are in your little niche and then outside. So it was really helpful. And I still, some are in New Zealand and London and France, they're everywhere. So Canada. So it's really cool that we can work together, and we're on opposite sides. It's really neat.
Yeah. What I have found really cool speaking to all these different people in the spiritual space is how so many of them have gone for business coaching, business mentors. It's like they haven't, like sometimes you would think, oh, if someone's very spiritual, they would kind of push that all away and kind of like denounce it. But it's really cool to see that so many people do still like, hey, I'll need to turn this into a business. It lets me share my message more, and they get coaches, they get help with it. I think that's really cool.
I think for me, I was the one who was like, I need this. Like that was where I started, was with a business coach, because I was like, I don't understand. And then when I went to the online business, again, this A personality, I needed to understand, like, what is this? I don't understand what an online business looks like. So give me the A to Z. And I learned a lot. So I found that as a healer, as I was in these masterminds, it was a little bit tougher because certain people would know exactly when they would talk about, okay, what's your elevator pitch? Or, what is this information specific to you? And I was always like, wait a minute, I can help so many in so many ways. How do I hone in on that specific type of, to get it in 2 sentences or 7 words? I was like, I don't know how that would work. So it was really, really helpful to have a variety of different coaches that I worked with, and to see the different people in the groups and to hear their different niches and specifics. And then to know that in especially this kind of realm I'm in, that you do kind of evolve and change and grow. So the clients that I really focused on in the beginning, as you were asking, like, who did I kind of go out and seek? So my messaging when I was going out and reaching out through social media really pertained to loss and going through heartache. And then over the years, it opened up to more and more. So I find that to be really cool and interesting, that we don't have to just narrow down ourselves into one area, that know that it's going to evolve, and know that it can be flexible and change and grow with you as you go through more things and experience more life. It will open up as well.
That's interesting that you mentioned that originally the focus was a little bit around grief and sadness and working through that. And then I'm guessing as you kind of not ended that chapter, what's the right word? Kind of, like you said, it became less of physical pain. It wasn't so heavy on you anymore. Like you could kind of carry on growing from that point. I'm guessing that's when your direction changed a little bit with who you're working with and things like that.
Yeah. And then being a single mom and doing an online business and still maintaining another, job, an actual physical go-to job. And then finding, like, how do you balance all of this? And then how do you keep your mindset? How do you have faith and trust? So there was a lot of different processes that came in just from experience of where I was at in my life. And then that always relates. It always does when you're talking to your clients, and then they're saying things and I'm getting messages from spirit, and I'm like, oh, thank you, because I needed to hear that. That one was for me too.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. So it's like, as you kind of went into that new life experience of being a single mom, you're like, wow, I'm finding Reiki's helping me a lot with this. And then you find yourself working with more single moms potentially, or moms experiencing the same pressures and things like that.
Yeah. Or just anybody really, like, wait, how do I balance? How do I have playtime? How do I have focused work time, and make that a real balance? Because so many of us will be like, oh, okay, I'm going to focus over here. And then we don't put as much attention into time by ourselves, or really honoring what it is that we need that will help us in this area over here to be able to give more, if we were to go, oh, but it's important to focus over here too, and to keep that. So
yeah, no, I think it's a very interesting, I don't think I've ever thought about it that way. I mean, that's also the importance of kind of like self-awareness, and just sitting every now and then and kind of taking a new, not tally, but where am I, like who am I right now? Because maybe you started out as one person and then working with people kind of like that, but now you're a different person. So it's like potentially your direction needs to change. You're like, okay, I'm actually this person now, and it's still helping me. Maybe I can find more of those people who are going to benefit from this because they're literally me in the same position, same mindset, etc.
Absolutely. And that what you just said about they are me, that has definitely been the last, 5-6 years worth of this journey, is really understanding oneness and coming into that collective consciousness, which is again why Facebook was a little hard last year. Because it was so much. But really that we are each other, and that yes, we all have these hardships and these experiences, but we really can appreciate, instead of, road rage of like, oh my gosh, that person cut me off. It's that awareness of, oh, well, they must be having something right now. Maybe there's an emergency they need to get to, or there's just, something else going on. But it takes the awareness and the choice to see it that way instead of having the reaction.
Yeah. And slowing yourself down. It's like not reacting on this instinct straight away, which that's where the power of meditation, Reiki, all of that comes into, that self-awareness and slowing things down.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey and your stories today. We kind of blew through the time very quickly.
I know, it's always so much fun to talk about this. It's just, it goes so fast, but I love to do it. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and for people who want to reach out to you and hear more about yourself and maybe work with you a little bit and hear more about what you're doing, what's the best way for people to connect?
So my website is always the one that will be the most up to date. I always like to put new things out there. I do different kind of group coaching types of things, or right now I'm working on a little library where they can find everything, these types of things that we've talked about. So it's all through my website, CourtneyEileen.com.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll obviously drop all the links in the bottom, but thanks again for sharing your stories today. It's been awesome. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Automator Series as much as I enjoyed having it. And there are two things I want you to do now. I want you firstly to follow me on YouTube, get that subscription in, because you're going to see all the new episodes popping up in that case, and you can stay on top of the series. And the second thing is, I want you to reach out to me. If anything we discussed on the episode today resonated with you in regards to potentially taking a jump into an online spiritual coaching business, or you already have a business and you're wanting to grow that out and you're feeling like you could be impacting a lot more lives, but you don't quite have the time right now, you don't quite have the freedom you wanted, and you don't quite have those systems in place, I want you to reach out to me. It's a no pressure, no strings attached. Send me a message on Facebook, LinkedIn, email, whatever you prefer, and we can just have a conversation and a bit of a back and forth in regards to where you're at, what you're looking for, and how I might be able to help you impact more lives with what you're doing.